Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight. Now today I'm going to launch a series of videos for, in the main, serving police officers, and in the main serving police officers who want to get promoted. Because one of the big discussions in the In-Force Advancement Group, and this is a group of police officers who meet with me every week over Zoom. We have a 2-hour workshop where we focus on the challenges that they have in advancing their career. In the main, we practice interview questions for promotion, specialist interviews, and also take a look at things like application forms and how they can develop new management techniques, leadership techniques that are going to benefit them in the future. So not just about the promotion, not just about getting the job, but more about a consistent approach to developing a fulfilling and successful career. And one of the big challenges that has cropped up, especially for officers in the Police Service of Northern Ireland, is forward-facing questions around how will you? These seem to be becoming more and more popular on interview boards. They're nothing new. I experienced them in the 1990s when I got promoted to sergeant. By the time I went for my inspector's board in the mid-noughties, they'd gone. And it was just, can you tell me about a time when? Type questions. And now we've got them back again. The pendulum has swung in the other direction. So one of the big questions is, how will you promote diversity, equality, and inclusion in your future team? Really challenging question. So I'm doing a series of videos where I'm going to help with some ideas, and I'd like to thank my good friend and colleague on Twitter, Dr. Pete Jones, who's helped me formulate some of these responses. So this is the very first one. The rest of them are going to be in the In-Force Advancement Group for the benefit of those officers, and you can find a link to it below. Anyway, let's get down to business. So one of the first things that I think I should urge you to do is just bear in mind that every day your behaviour sets the standard. Your behaviour sets the standard. That everything you do as a PC now, who wants to be promoted to sergeant, or a sergeant who wants to get promoted to inspector, makes a huge difference on those people around you. So especially if you're in an acting role, you might be finding it difficult at times to ensure that you've got that distance between you in terms of your officers and your particular role. But one of the things that I think a lot of the time acting sergeants, acting inspectors, and people who aspire to the next rank forget is that their behaviour sets the norm. Your behaviour sets the culture. People will follow in your footsteps in respect of your behaviour. You're like a mirror. So it's almost like you are holding up a mirror, and what you see within the mirror in terms of your behaviour will be reflected back onto the rest of the team. I absolutely guarantee this. I've seen teams before, as both a sergeant and as an inspector, I've seen teams' cultures change in the main because of the sergeants. That's the critical, pivotal role. One of my superintendents years ago gave me some really good words of wisdom when I was going for a promotion to inspector. He says, don't ever forget, Brendan, that it's a sergeant's war out there. And we discussed this, he didn't mean actually, a war, but what he meant was that everything that the force wants to achieve, everything that the force is trying to do, everything that the senior officers, the inspector, is trying to get done will only happen because of good sergeants. Sergeants have got the capability to completely throw the direction a force is trying to go in. That's true. It's so true. Sergeants can completely kibosh the best of plans in ingenious ways. But one of the things that they can do is they set the tone. They set the tone. So please remember that, and you can mention that and perhaps give some examples about how you have set the tone in your role as a constable, or you've set the tone in your role as an acting sergeant. That's not very long, that is it? It's just 4 minutes. So I'm going to give you another little tip as well There's several more that are going to come after this, and like I said, I'm very grateful to Dr. Pete Jones, who's actually an expert in this area. I'm going to big him up now on Twitter. If you want to follow him, he has got the most unusual and bizarre label, title, whatever you call it on Twitter, of @FatWhiteBloke. @FatWhiteBloke. I'm sure there's a deeper meaning behind that rather pejorative way of describing himself. Okay, so I think this is another issue that is one that we've discussed on the In-Force Advancement Group, and that's about getting to know your staff. And this is especially cropped up in respect of PSNI officers who, when I ask them practice questions about how will you demonstrate or how will you promote diversity, equality and inclusion as a sergeant, as an inspector in the future, we tend to get this sort of big wish list of everything that they're going to do. LGBT issues, black officers, officers with neurodiverse conditions, absolutely everything except for the huge elephant in the room, which is loyalist or nationalist ideology, Roman Catholic or Protestant. And these are, I can't even profess to understand these issues, but I'd like to, and I'm trying to understand them better, but they are deep-seated issues that go back generations. And we have to remember that for many of the fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and mothers of those individuals who are now serving, they may have had those relatives involved in the Troubles, and may have had those relatives seriously harmed or killed in the Troubles. So these are really, really difficult issues, and I'm really trying to understand them the best I possibly can. But there's no escaping the fact that these are probably the biggest diversity, equality and inclusion issues that you have to face as a PSNI officer. And to avoid the conversations around these issues is to avoid your responsibility as a leader. So one of the things that I think you could do, a really good step you could take, is to get to know all your staff on a personal level. And I know that might sound easy, but think about this. So do you know, if you're in an acting role especially, do you know every one of your members of staff as well as the one that you know most about at this moment in time? So think about your team. You might have a team of 10 officers, let's just say 10 officers, on a good day. I know some of you can say, 10 officers? We never have anything like 10 officers. But let's say you've got 10 officers. I can pretty much guarantee that 2 or 3 of them you will know really well. You'll know their likes, their dislikes, what sports they're involved in, what they like to do, where to go on holiday, whether they have a partner, children. You will know a lot about them. Now, I'd like to also now think about the officer on your team that you know least about, and really reflect and compare. And what did you do to find out about the officers who you know most about? I can pretty much guarantee it will involve having conversations with them. You may have had more conversations with them at an unconscious level without even thinking about it. Maybe because they are people like you. Maybe because you are drawn to them, because they are just people like you. So what I'm going to urge you to do now, so you could actually talk about it as something you've done as opposed to something that you're going to do, is to have those same conversations with every member of your staff without it seeming like some formal thing. It's not a sort of come into my office, I want to talk about, ask you questions about your life. This is just a sort of thing that just crops up in conversation in the night kitchen, going out on patrol for half an hour with them, having a bit of a chat with them in the parade room. Just those unassuming conversations that just allow you to get to know an individual. And the more you get to know them, and the more you show a genuine and authentic interest in them, the more they might open up about the things that concern them. So it's quite legitimate, I think, as a leader, to ask questions about what motivated you want to join the police. What do you enjoy the most? What do you find challenging? What would you change? Is there anything you'd change? If you could change anything, if you were the inspector, what would you change? You know, you can't just ask those questions straight away. They start with just general chit-chat, but generally you can start moving into those sort of questions. And when someone feels as though they can trust you in an authentic way back, then they may open up a little bit. And you may find that they say something along the lines of, it's actually my little boy's we're Roman Catholic, and my little boy's Holy Communion's coming up soon. And I'd really like to get that day off, but I know we've got an issue with, staffing issue, whatever it might be, but it means so much to me. So what they're doing there is they're opening up a little bit to you and sharing something about what's important in their life. And that gives you the golden opportunity to see what you can do to manage that situation on their behalf and to help them. And even if you can't arrange that day off, and I'm just using that as an example, at least they can see that you've tried. At least they can see that you've tried. So what I'm not promoting is that you go straight into a conversation and say, so what's your religious background? So what's your sexual orientation? No, just please, no, do not do that. But get to know your staff. Think about, like I said before, think about the member of staff that you know best. And then think about what you need to do to get to know every member of staff in the same way. Because you will be drawn to people like you. We do it on an unconscious level. I can prove it to you. We'll end on this, I can prove it to you. So think about the last time you went to some conference or meeting or get together. I can pretty much guarantee, especially at I see this at conferences all the time, the big round tables that will sit about between 8 and 12 people. Just look around you or think about the ones that you've been to before or anything like that, any big meeting. Think about that sort of meeting of people. I can pretty much guarantee there's a table of lots of middle-aged white blokes in suits. There's a table of lots of women. There's a table of all the PCSOs. There's a table of all the constables. There's a table of people from the housing association. So the way it is, people will be naturally drawn to people who are like them in some way, at some kind of unconscious level. So maybe you may have to push the boat out a little bit here, folks, to get to know those people who you might not necessarily be drawn towards at that unconscious level. And you're having to do it now at a conscious level. So there you go, folks. I hope that really made sense to you. I've got a lot more tips and bits of guidance for you to enable you to be able to hold your own in one of those conversations that you're going to have in your interview board where you are asked that question, can you tell me about a time? No, not can you tell me about a time, but how will you promote diversity, equality and inclusion in the future? So if you're interested in finding out more, then there's a link below to the In-Force Advancement Group and also to the different Facebook groups I run for serving police officers and those who aspire to be a police officer. And I hope if you're an aspiring police officer, you found this interesting as well. You might want to go away and have a think about how this might work in your own workplace or your own college or university environment. All right, folks, until next time, I shall catch up with you soon. Bye-bye for now.